power of positive behaviour management. So we're going to go through the different steps. So the first one is building positive relationships. So when you're working with your schools, your classes, your individual clubs, it's really important that those relationships are there. So there's some different tactics you can do to do that. Okay, so learning your children's names is a massive one. When I teach courses, it's one thing I really highlight and really try to focus on in the first probably half hour. I'll draw my table plan of where everybody is in the session, and I'll write their names of where they're sitting, because it's so powerful to have engagement through somebody's name instead of just saying, "Oh, you person in the Tottenham kit, can you come here?" You're not going to get anything from that. So really important that you learn their names and you treat them with respect, and the same respect you want to receive from the back. So it's making sure that you get to know the groups of your partners, of your group. So making sure you know what children work well together, what children don't. Making sure you're asking the schools for that information. What are their interests? What are their aspirations? What football teams they support? What they want to do when they grow up? It's going to take you time, but it's really important that those relationships are something that's at your front of your mind trying to do. Okay, so although it doesn't feel important, making sure you can see what they're trying to achieve, where they're from, and why they're in your lesson or why they've decided to come to your club is a massive way of building those relationships. And this goes bigger and further than just the classroom. We spoke about it on Wednesday's session with Glenn. Relationships leads to loads of opportunities, loads of friendship groups, and loads of aspirations for yourself as well as the group you're working with. So that's how we're going to start it. Okay, then we're going to move to the next one. So your words will reflect what you say. Okay, so it's really important the way you're talking and the way you're working with your groups is you're using positive words. So it's really simple. Okay, but instead of highlighting the negative, so will you stop talking, we need to highlight the positive. So I'd like everyone to listen sensibly. Thank you. Okay, we've got please in there, we've got thank you in there. They're two words that I talk about as well. If anyone's been on my previous courses, really highlight the word thank you. Okay, psychologically, you're already thanking them for doing something, and a child won't be able to process that quick enough. So if it's right, everybody come and sit down here sensibly, thank you. Before they even think about it, they've been thanked for it. They realise, okay, they have to do it because they've already been thanked, and they will do it. And you'll be so surprised from the results you'll get from that. Also, making sure we don't highlight the negatives is because if I had a group and I had a puddle in my playground and I said, right, guys, all I want you to do is we're going to warm up, but I don't want you to go over to the puddle over there because that's going to be dangerous. What have you just done with 30 children? You just highlighted the most exciting bit on the playground as it stands, and guess where they're going to run first? They're going to go and see how quick they can push the boundaries to get to that puddle. And it's the same with us as adults. I go out for an Indian restaurant, and what happens to me? They put the plates down, the hot plates go down. Don't touch the hot plate, it's hot. What's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to touch it because someone's just told me, oh, that's a challenge. So it's about thinking your language needs to affect that. Okay, so really important that you use them words in a positive way, and also thank you. So we're not highlighting the negative. There'll be opportunities to ask questions at the end, but I'm guessing we're just going to fly through these parts and then open it up to the group. So using focus praise, like we said, thank you, Lucy, for sitting up nicely. It's really important that when we do that, okay, we are highlighting those positive areas of our lesson. So if you've got a group of children sitting in front of you and you're giving your learning outcomes in your learning circle or learning square, it's really important that you highlight those children that are doing well, because children, adults, we're all herd communities, will follow, okay, psychologically will follow what the other group is doing of the herd. So if you highlight those that are looking for attention in a good way, then guess what? Those that are misbehaving, those that are being naughty are then going to follow suit because they want to get your attention. So it's really important. So you'll get them children that are misbehaving. They'll be misbehaving for a couple of reasons. They'll be misbehaving because they want your attention, and that's what we can give if they do it right. So if they do it nicely, we can thank them for that. We can also make sure that if they are struggling with the activity and they want to get your attention in a different way to bring you away from the activity, so they don't have to do it, so they're going to get the attention from their group for a different reason, we need to then highlight those children that are doing it right. So it's really important that your praise is specific and reinforce the desired behaviour you want to achieve. Okay. Next one is we need to catch them being good. So I challenge myself every lesson I deliver. I want to have a positive reinforcement impact on every child in that group, not on their ability, on their behaviour. So this is something you should be doing. So if you've got a group of 16 children, then aim to have a touch point with every one of them children, catching them, using their name, explaining what they've done well, and reinforcing that you want them to do that. And that you will find that so easy when you target it. You'll probably end up doing it 5 times per child. But when I go to observe, that's one thing I will do. I will choose one child in the group, probably a child that's quiet, not the one the coach goes to every time for questions because they know the answers while the assessor's watching. I will choose a child that's in the background, not been engaged by the coach for the first 5 minutes, and I will see how many touch points that coach has with that child. And it's really important that you as a coach do that yourself. So you have every child in your head that you want to touch a positive reinforcement point with them. You want to find them doing something well, you want to let them know what it is, and you want to reinforce it. And you can use different tactics. I use the tactic of scanning. So scanning is something that you can add to your armory if you don't already, and that's being a presence in the classroom. We hear the saying that teachers have eyes in the back of their heads. That's not true. However, it is true that they're always watching, and the way you can do that is to have your group working and always pick the person who's the furthest away and make sure they know what they're doing. So it's a pick. Brilliant, Cameron, excellent stuff at the back. Really like the way you're moving with control. Cameron's like a rabbit in headlights because he's thought you weren't even looking where he was going, not the fact that you've seen him, and then you've just reinforced to the rest of the group that you're watching everybody. And it's really important that you're doing that and you're scanning the group and you're being a presence at the back of the hall or at the front of the hall. And it's so powerful. Give responsibility and ownership. So over the course of the last 2 weeks, you may have touched on the different learning styles. I know those who are doing our apprentices, we're now looking at this in Unit 2 on your apprenticeship, is the autocratic, democratic and laissez-faire. So it's really important that you use them learning styles to set the ground rules first, but then give them some more rope to take. So when you go into a school for the first time, think about it as giving them some rope. I would give them very little, and I would set my outcomes, set my expectations, and set your stall out at the start, and then you can release that. Because if you go in and you go in loosely with a lot of rope for them to take and take advantage of, it's very hard to get that rope back and get that expectations back. So if you go in firmer and then release it as you go. So you go with an autocratic style, you set your ground rules, you set them out. You then move into a democratic where it's a democracy of between, right, you and me, you've got to earn your responsibility as children. And then once they've earned it, it's then getting them to give them a laissez-faire or a let's do in English. The translation is let's do style of teaching to give them some more responsibility, because I can guarantee you will get more respect back if you do that. If you stay in that autocratic zone for your lessons and it's shouty and it's bossy sessions, unfortunately, you're going to get them rebel, and they're going to repel because it's not going to be what's fit for a group of children or a group of participants in front of you. So it's about getting to that point when you're safe and you know the ground rules are set, to then give them that ownership and gradually give them more. So by the end of my coaching time at the end, my key stage 2, right the way from year 3 to year 6, led all of their warm-ups themselves. So when they got to the hall, they knew who the captain was of the week that I chose the week before. That captain had homework to go and choose their session. They had to decide not the session for the whole session, but the session for the warm-up linked to what we were doing. So if we were doing hockey, right, next week, guys, we're doing passing. Captains, you're going to choose a passing warm-up session. It could be a game. It might not even use hockey sticks. You need to go away, go home, find it. And then when I came into the hall, sorting out all my equipment for my next lesson and the changeover, they were already working and taking part. Now, that takes time to get to that point, and you need to have confidence that they're there. But once you get to that, the behaviour you get and the relationship you have with your groups is massive. So it's really important, okay, that you give that. So the quote on the right-hand side, you may have read it. School should not be done to our kids. It should be something they experience. So it should be something they're part of, not something do this, do that, do this. It should be something, shall we do this? What do you think we could do next? Where do we go, do you think, with this situation? How could you make this game harder? How could you make this game easier? And it's really important that you And at the bottom, just reinforce again. We pays reward for the whole lesson. Okay. Reward the behaviour you want to be repeated. So you all do it. We all highlight those negatives, which I spoke about before. Okay. And they get more attention. Their attention draw from us is a lot more than we do on the positives. Now let's take that away. Most now, which you should be asking when you go into a school, will be positive reinforcement behaviour plans. They will be there to reward if you get raffle tickets, if you get marbles, if you get merits, if you get house points, if you get class dojo points, but it's for doing something well. It's not, sorry, you lose time now. And I think we as coaches fall into that bracket of saying, right, do that again, you lose 5 minutes of your lunchtime. If you do that again, you lose 10 minutes of your lunchtime. Next thing, you've got an hour and a half that they've lost, and you're still, the lunchtime is only 45 minutes. You can't do that. So we need to make sure we reward and incentivize through positive behavior. So you can do that in loads of different ways. We'll talk about it at the end. I'm going to open it all up. But I'm gauging from previous sessions you guys like just listening and learning instead of then dissecting it and doing it at the end. So we're going to do that. Okay. So don't take points away for poor behavior, but add points for positive. And as I said on a couple of slides before, reward and focus on that. And you'll see the common trend throughout is we need to make sure that positive reinforcement is there, it's rewarded, and it can be rewarded visually as well. On my session on yesterday, it was about using technology. Why not use technology for your behavior? It should be massive. It should be in there. It could be class time tables. It could be a graph where they have a thermometer building up. If you search online and look for thermometers, like custom thermometers, literally online, like a visual picture, you type in the score that you want them to achieve, you then type where they're at, it will visually show them a picture of the thermometer of where they're getting to. And it's a great visual for the children to actually earn towards that. Okay. When you're working, make sure you're giving effective instructions. I can guarantee on every playground this week, if we're still working in schools, the instructions would have took about 5 minutes from, right, we'll do the warm up, right, everyone in. Okay, this is what we're going to do next. We're going to do this, then this, then this, and I want you to go and get this, and I want you to find a partner, then you're going to do this, then you're going to stand in this area, and then you're going to go. Children have lost it after the first 10 seconds. So it needs to make sure if we want positive behaviour and we want good behaviour, we need to be clear and concise. And there's a great little demo on the right-hand side picture of being calm. We need to be concise and clear instructions. We need to check their understanding. Now, how do we do that? We can Q&A. We can Q&A the groups that are quiet. We can ask the children at the back that we said we wanted to positively reinforce that we haven't yet. We can ask the child who's perhaps not always the one who's going to get to do the demos for the competence that we want to set that, but we can actually say, right, brilliant. What I want you to do now is I want you to go and stand in the space in my square. Johnny, can you please go and stand in the space and show everybody what I mean from my instruction? So Johnny's going to go. He's going to go and stand in his space. You can then highlight, brilliant, Johnny, excellent stuff. Love the way you've found a big space in the middle of the square. Can everybody see what I've asked you to do? So you're checking again for understanding. Brilliant. With the green group, so not everybody, because you don't want to herd a sheep running over to the square. With the green group, go and now do the same as Johnny. Excellent. Can yellows, can you see how well the greens did that? Brilliant. Yellows, can you go and do the same, but even better? Does that make sense? So hopefully it does. Okay, set the limits. Don't go over them. So if you say you do that again, you're sitting out, make sure you're sitting them out. I wouldn't even want to sit them out in a lesson, but if that's what you're setting, then make sure you follow it through. Okay, we need to avoid questions that are closed. So is that the right behavior? They're going to say yes or no. It's not a question. How do you think we should be behaving today, Sarah? Well, actually, sir, maybe I'm a little bit noisy. Brilliant. Okay, can we just bring that noise level down a little bit? Okay, so it's about making sure you ask them correct questions, set the limit, and then follow them through. Don't break promises, because once you get that, they've got you. Okay, I talk about it a lot in my sessions. Is the supply teacher syndrome? We all did it. When we had a supply teacher come into our schools, we knew it was game on. It was fresh meat. We could smell them coming down the hallway. It was right. You go at the back of the hall. I'm going to go at the front. You're now John. I'm now Peter. And you're changing your names. And everybody's sitting. All the teachers doing is they're underprepared. They're coming in as supply teacher. They're looking to find their work on the desk. And that's it. They're not prepared. They're not got any expectations. And they're not going, okay, in the right way to get any good behaviour. So it's important. Effective instructions are clear and concise. Check it for understanding. setting a limit of your expectations, what you want. So make sure they know what's not acceptable and then follow that through. Okay, discipline process. So we just touched on it a little bit, but it's really important that we think about when we discipline a child for behavior that's not acceptable and not safe to the class, that we know where we're going and how we're going to get there. Okay, so on the right hand side there's a nice little quote: make sure that your actions and behaviors live up to the reflect the words and ideas and promises, commitments come out of your mouth, because I hear it all the time. Do that again and you're sitting out. Guess what? They do it again. What are you going to do, sir? You didn't sit me out last time you said I was going to sit out, and you've lost them. So it's really important that what you say with your discipline or your sanctions, so to speak, are consistent. And I would avoid them because it's not positive. But if you do need to, because of safety or because of too many chances and it's just not going to work without having to go into some sort of discipline, it's making sure you know what them steps are. So the best piece of advice I can give you is to use the tools, the school's train set. It's not ours. We just play with it. So use their, not physically a train set, but use their rules. So the school have a discipline procedure that the children are using 30 hours a week. We go in for an hour with that class. We're trying to then use our own, and it's not going to work. They're not used to it. So use the school one. So if the school's got marbles for rewards and the school's got a cloud, sun and a sunny cloud, use that. If the school's got one warning, it's a warning. Next one, it's 30 seconds out. Next one, it's 2 minutes out. Next one, it's you have to go to your classroom instead of doing PE. But you know that they're used to that and they're clear sanctions that you can follow. Not next one you're sitting out and you don't sit them out. Next one you're sitting out and you still don't sit them out because you need them for the numbers and the even numbers. You've lost them. So start with a non-verbal cue, which we'll talk about in a minute. Pause if it's still not. Take them away, take them to one side and follow your sanctions and be consistent. And we all remember probably as kids, going back a lot longer for me than probably some of you guys, the look from our parents when we knew we hadn't done something wrong. So I need you to think about how you come across in your sessions. Do you have the look? So we all have that teacher. So I used to have a teacher that used to teach me when I was in primary school. His assembly was silent and he never said a word until probably the music had finished and the singing had finished. And then the reason it was silent was because he had the look. So as soon as he saw someone talking, he just looked over, stern faced. They knew that they were in the wrong and they stopped. Have you got that in your sessions? Have you got the look? Okay, it's really important. We all know when we've done something wrong at home, you get that look from your parents, or you did. It's important that we now can have that, and we have that respect from the children to know when they're out of line, and you don't even need to raise your voice or say anything. Okay, think about prompts as well. So think about how you're going to get the children to stop. So do you have a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? Do you have a clap, clap, they repeat? What do you have? I try to avoid whistles where I can, because it's just more noise. And guess what? When you blow a whistle, they get louder. So if you talk quieter, they talk quieter. They start listening because they have to. Okay, so it's about making sure your processes are there. So recapping, and then we're going to open it up. Make sure you build your positive relationships with the group. It's really important that you know their names. It's really important that you know their hobbies, their interests. Why are they there? So if it's a PE lesson, we know why they're there, because they're in school. If it's a holiday club, why are they there? Get down. Why are they there with their brother and sister, but they don't want to be in the same group? Let's try and work that out. Let's try and break that down, and let's work with those relationships. Get to know parents. Get to know the other teachers. Relationships with teachers could be your best asset in schools where you find it difficult, because they're the ones working with them children every week and every day, and we need to make sure that we know how they're using behaviour and behaviour management to manage that group. Use positive language. So making sure that you're not highlighting the negatives. Don't run. No. Walk sensibly. If I say don't run to you, all you hear is run. If I say walk sensibly, you hear walk and you hear sensibly. Okay? It's really important that you use that in them psychological ways. Make sure we say thank you. Please sounds like begging. Please be quiet. Be quiet. Thank you. It's a difference. Okay? We're not begging. We're not teachers that need to beg. We've got good behaviour management. So it's thank you, and we'll go from there. You'll be surprised how it works when you get back into your schools if you're not in them now. Catch them being good. Making sure we're looking for every child. Remember we talked about scanning. Remember we talked about looking. Remember we talked about making sure that those children that don't always get seen, because they're the middle group that aren't loud, they're not noisy, they're also not the ones pushing the boundaries of the outcomes and the expectations of ability. Make sure we catch that group as well. We need to catch the whole group. So if you've got a group of 30, you've got to work hard. You've got to bounce around. You've got to be catching all of them. You've got to use the back of the room, the front of the room, the middle of the room. Give them responsibility and ownership. So we spoke about that. We go from autocratic when ready. We move them into a democratic style of delivery where they get a say in some of their learning. We then, when we get there, we start to give real ownership. Right, you two are my PE monitors. You're going to get the PE kit out every week. This is what I want this month. Here's my list. You guys are the PE monitors at the end of the session. You're going to put PE kit back. You're my captains. You're going to make this. You're my umpires. Every time there's a decision on your house team, you're going to come together and you two are going to make the decision for the rest of the group. That's a really good one to give ownership. Okay, and don't always choose the ones that are the obvious ones to choose, because you'll get some great leaders come out of it. Use rewards and incentivize good behavior. Okay, use a reward system that the school have got first if we've got it. So if they've got a marble system, if they've got a golden time reward system, if they've got class dojo points or something like that with technology, use that system. Effective instructions, making sure they're clear, concise, okay, they're achievable, making sure that actually they understand them, so they're not too long-winded, they're not 10 instructions, just one clear instruction. Go and find a space in my square. Then you reaffirm it, so you get somebody else to go and do it. Then we make sure we set the outcomes for what, okay, we expect, and then we make sure we follow it through. Last one, don't leave yourself with nowhere to go. So making sure any discipline sanctions you have to give, that you don't go too high. We start low with a look. If it doesn't work, we pull them to one side and we explain why we're disappointed. Why do you think? We get down to their level and we say, right, I'm really disappointed with what you just done. Why do you think it was? And get them to answer. Remember, we avoid yes and no questions, because it's easy for them just to say what you want to hear and that's it, and then move on, and it won't work. And then make sure you've always got somewhere to go. Okay, don't forget, if you promise that you're going to sanction in a way and you don't deliver, you lose that respect from them instantly, and they've got no then way to go back. So it's important. So unfortunately, we don't get to decide whether we have challenging students in our class, but we certainly can decide how we respond to them. And hopefully this session on positive behaviour management has made you think about actually some of the language you're using, some of the sanctions you're using, some of the setup and the ways you're leading your groups is working and making you think about that.